Okay, if you've landed here, you probably just need a little bit of help figuring out these matrix multiplication problems. Dimensions are really important when we're doing any type of matrix arithmetic. So let's check this one right here. This has one row and two columns. So this is a 1 by 2. This has two rows and one column. So this is a 2 by 1. Now the fact that these inner dimensions are the same, that tells us we can actually multiply the two of these, and the resultant is going to have these outer dimensions. So it's going to be a 1 by 1. Now the cool thing about this is there's only one spot that we need to figure out. So we need to find the first row, first column. So in order to do that, we're going to take the first row and we're going to multiply it by the first column, and we're going to kind of hook these up correspondingly. I'm going to multiply the 2 with the 5, and I'm going to multiply the -1 with the 4. If I do this in person, I show people the karate chop method. Works pretty well. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to multiply the 2 times the 5, so 2 times 5, and then we're going to add what we get when we do the -1 times the 4. That's the answer that goes in that blank right there. So this is going to be 2 times 5 is 10, and then -1 times 4 is -4. So we end up with 10 minus 4, so we end up with 6 right here. That right there is the answer. Now, if you want to do these calculations off to the side, that's totally okay. If you want to do them inside, that's fine. Now let's take a look at this next example. This one has 2 rows, and it has 3 columns, so this is a 2 by 3. This one has 2 rows and 2 columns, so this is a 2 by 2. Now the fact that those inner dimensions are not the same, that means this is not possible. We can't actually multiply the two of these together. Now the interesting thing about this is a 2 by 3 times a 2 by 2, but if I take those in the opposite order, now this is a completely different problem. This is a 2 by 2, and this is a 2 by 3. So if I multiply the two of those together, the inner dimensions are the same, so I can multiply them, and I end up with a 2 by 3. Now I like writing down the dimensions here. So this is going to be 2 rows and 3 columns. So I'm going to have 2 rows of 3. 2 rows of 3. Now in order to get this one right here, this is in the first row, first column. So I'm going to take the first row and I'm going to multiply by the first column. So I'm going to do the same thing that we did up there. I'm going to multiply the 1 with the 5, so that's going to be 5, and then I'm going to multiply the -2 with the -1, and that's going to be 2. So if I were to write that out, I do 1 times 5, and then plus the -2 times the -1, so that would be plus 2. So I have 5 plus 2, I end up with, 5 plus 2, I end up with a 7 right there. Now again, if you want to write every single one of those out, that's totally okay. What I like doing is just going through and saying, okay, this is in the first row, second column. So I'm going to take the first row and I'm going to multiply it with the second column. So this is going to be 1 times 0 is 0. -2 times 1 is -2. So 0 and -2, that makes -2. So this one right here is a -2. Then I've got the first row, third column. So I'm going to take that first row again and I'm going to multiply it with the third column. So I'm going to multiply the 1 with the 1, so that's 1. -2 times 6, that would be -12. So 1 and -12, that makes -11. All right. Then I'm going to move on to this next one. So this is the second row, first column. That position right there is second row, first column. So I'm going to take the second row and I'm going to multiply it by the first column. And notice how we've got enough numbers that they still match up. So I'm going to take the 1 and multiply it with the 5, and the 4 and multiply it with the -1. So let's see what we get here. When we multiply here, we get a -1 times 5, that's -5. 4 times -1, that's -4. So -5 and -4 together make a -9. The next one that we want to do is the second row, second column. So we're going to take the second row right here and we're going to multiply it with the second column. Whoops, let me highlight that there. Second row with the second column. So -1 times 0 is 0. 4 times 1 is 4. So we end up with just a plain old 4. And I'll give you a little bit of a head start on this one. See if you can figure this one out. It's in the second row, third column. So we're going to take the second row, go ahead and multiply it with the third column. So when I do that multiplication, we're going to have -1 times 1, that's -1. 4 times 6, that's 24. -1 and 24, that makes 23. So the answer right here is 23. So that would be the answer to this matrix multiplication problem.